We're live, everyone.
Hello, friends. Welcome to Yoga and Me. We've got a special edition today with our full co op owner crew. So, as we do every week, we're going to be exploring different yogic practices and philosophies and how it can have positive impact on our daily life. Our topic for this week is yoga and career or work. So, we're going to be talking about work and career.
Hola, bienvenidos a todos. Ahora tenemos plática muy especial porque tenemos nuestros otros dos compañeros, siempre era yo y Rita, ahora tenemos Jana y Jay, entonces va a ser una conversación bilingüe un poco, pero aquí nuestras conversaciones comunitarias va a ser para que podamos hablar sobre los principales de yoga y cómo lo estamos aplicando en nuestras vidas. Y hoy vamos a hablar de yoga en nuestras carreras profesionales. Y también cómo lo estamos aplicando este yoga en nuestras vidas. Entonces, nuestro enfoque ahora, vamos a hablar todos juntos sobre esa práctica de yoga y cómo nos va en nuestras carreras. So, para empezar, vamos a hacer 3 respiraciones juntos. So, Jana, you wanna?
Yeah, so we're going to begin like we do each week before we get into the conversation by collecting our breath, finding some presence. So we'll start now by taking 3 collective breaths together.
As the sirens go off.
I know.
Welcome to the
wakey,
tree.
wakey, wakey. I know, right?
Some things don't change.
Right. All right, Jay, you want to start with the quote?
No, I don't. I'm sorry. If, if I bring it up, I'll mess up the screen. So I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I got you. And then Rita's got the translation.
Yes. Go for it, Jenna.
All right. So, our quote for today to get the conversation started is by Khalil Gibran. And this is from his book, The Prophet. So, this says, work is love made visible. If you cannot work with love, but only with distaste, it's better that you should leave your work and sit at the gate of the temple and take alms of those who work with joy. For if you bake bread with indifference, you bake a bitter bread that feeds but half man's hunger.
Sí, entonces vamos a traducir todo lo que podamos en español. Y esta cotización es de un libro de el autor Khalil Gibran. Y la cotización es: el trabajo es amor hecho visible. Y si no puedes trabajar con amor, sino solo con disgusto, es mejor que dejes tu trabajo y te sientes a la puerta del templo para recibir limosna de los que trabajan con alegría. Porque si horneas pan con indiferencia, horneas un pan amargo que alimenta el hambre a medias. Yes. All right, guys. Y recuerden, es la primera vez que estamos haciendo esta programación en inglés y en español, junto con Jana y Jay, que hacen las conversaciones de yoga y yo en inglés. So, aguántenos.
Well, Jay, would you like to start off about the quote and how it relates to our theme? And then we can just flow from there. Or no.
Jay's like, I don't want what the audience doesn't know too, that I'm just gonna put Jay on blast, is that he is our visual and audio guy that does like all the behind the scenes getting together of like the YouTube, the Zoom, the Facebook, all that stuff. So he's like an octopus right now, probably trying to manage all kinds of little knobs and dials, if I'm not mistaken, Jay.
Oh,
Yes,
for sure.
we were having some technical difficulties that I was trying to figure out here suddenly with Facebook, which is just kind of how it rolls. But we are good
Okay.
with YouTube right now. And so it's, you know, in the sense of this quote and talking about careers, it's in the sense of how I've always approached things, of where the things that I've loved to do are the things that I've really pushed to do in my life. And so something that I even try and teach my kids is that I don't necessarily want them to get a job as much as I want them to have a career. As long as I had my skill and something that I could do for myself, then it didn't matter where it was I went. I didn't care what the company or business was doing. I could apply my skills and they would pay me, and I could go anywhere and do it. And so that's what it brings up for me, is in the sense of thinking of having that thing that you can do, that thing that you can love, and how that love can feed you. That's at least what it brings up for me.
Hmm. Interesting.
What does it bring up?
I'll go next, only because I'm like, I know what I want to talk about. Entonces aquí voy a aventar mi Spanglish, ¿eh? Palabras por aquí, por allá, de los dos idiomas. Pero el tema de ahora es la yoga y nuestras carreras. Entonces, cómo la yoga se entremezcló con nuestras carreras. And I've been working in the fashion industry for, oh my God, I think since I was 18. So this, and it just happened that my mom was a seamstress. Entonces ella sabía coser, cose todavía, es costurera. She made everything from wedding dresses to charro suits to like all kind of stuff. And so I was always looking, helping, and I had some understanding of it. So that's how I got into the fashion industry. Obviously started at the bottom because I dropped out of high school. Entonces no terminé la prepa. Y nomás mirando lo que hacía mamá en la casa, it just kind of like helped me like nudge my way and figure my way out into this fashion industry thing, where now I'm a senior level tech designer, so I have a lot of experience under my belt. But it's also, and I feel like I told a couple of people this, not everybody. So those of you that might be my coworkers, sorry if I haven't shared this with you, but I fucking hate the fashion industry. It is so super fucking official. Everything is over fucking priced. And the truth is it fucks up our environment so much. And so you know, I wanted to do something else at some point because I remember my dad saying, "Mija, ¿para qué vas a agarrar otro trabajo, otra carrera? Haz lo que sabes hacer, por eso te pagan." So basically, he was just telling me like, you already know what you're doing. Just do what you know and get paid well for it. And luckily for me, uh, through yoga, I've been able to situate myself in these senior level positions where I don't take in so much of that busy fashion industry shit, where you have these divas that are always, you know, trying to get their stuff done and kind of be in your face. And then not just that, but also, you know, the pressure of it, because in the fashion industry you have seasons, so you have to have, you know, your fall collection at this time, so these deadlines are insane. And for me, I think that was one of my toughest challenges, not just in life but in my career, was to balance all that stress, but also to be able to work and be on time, be the best that I could be, to make sure that that company met their goals. actually, I would say at the same time I got my teacher training certificate at the Tree, I quit my full-time job because I was like, I'm out, I can't do this. And I started freelancing, and oh my God, freelancing gave me so much more space to do other things, because now I could be like, look, I'm freelancing, this is my schedule, this is what I could do, this is what you're going to pay for me to do your work. And it's been amazing so far. I think it's been like 5 years already that I've been freelancing. So I don't know. That's how yoga has intermixed into my my personal career. And
I don't want to interrupt you, Rita.
go ahead.
But we always do, huh?
I know.
But it's when you're saying that, like, about like that balance, like when we think about, I mean, not that we actually think about, but when we hear about like these top CEOs of these companies having like this balance, so that they put out these books, like celebrities, like how their success, like, oh yeah, I do yoga and meditation. I think like Kobe and I don't know who else, like all these like big people. I've never read any of their books to actually see like what they actually know about, but they say that they use these skills, right? And I think for us who like just applying it into our own lives, and it's I think a lot, everything that you both have said, like Jay, you as like a dad, and what you've talked about your kids, and Rita, your own experience like navigating that industry. I think it's almost applicable in any industry, as far as like seeing the things that we get stressed out about, and then taking a step back and be like, is this worth stressing out about? Like, is this really like good for me? Am I happy here? Like, should my work environment be making me feel like I could be losing my, like, just really very reflective, and just realizing like at what point am I giving more than what my job or career is giving me back? And that to me has been like mind blowing to really just think about it. And I think for my own parents, who are very much like telling me, like, you're studying, and like, are you working in your career? And it's like, you know what, when I think about like what yoga has done for me, I feel like as long as I have learned what my own values are, and what balance, like what's important to me, and if it's like balance and having peace of mind and having boundaries to be able to have that, I feel like I will be happy wherever I am working, whether it's working in my career, but as long as my career is reflective of like what's my truth as far as what's going to make me happy. Because I could work like a 9 to, and I'm not shitting on any 9 to 5 job. I'm just saying, like, I could work that with all benefits and stuff, but then I think about the trade-off on like the taxing of your health. And then there's people who they do that and they still manage to have balance. So I think like there's a way to do all of it. And I don't know at what point we're supposed to start talking Spanish, guys.
Por eso, Jen, el Spanglish, por favor, ahí métele una que otra palabrita. De todos modos, Jay y Jana ya saben de lo que estamos hablando.
Yo voy a hablar español un poco.
Oh, Jana, sígale.
Sígale.
I'm the ignorant one of the bunch.
Yeah, I'm thinking about, this quote makes me think about, and what you all have talked to makes me think about just recognizing that wherever you show up, like in a work setting or anything where you're going to be working with others, it's recognizing what you're bringing to the table, like your value.
Yes.
And not feeling like you've got to do it all, but acknowledging that which you want to do, and that which you can do, that which you feel comfortable with committing to. I think it's also very important to be mindful of your commitments, because it's like it's such a real contract on different levels when you commit to doing something. And just be real with yourself. And I love that the quote speaks to love being an offering of, or work being an offering of love and joy. And that's something that has become more and more real for me, to where it's like this new realization that I don't have to do anything I don't want to do. Like, it's, you just I can say that, and that's a journey. I haven't always felt that way, um, but it's like recognizing that there's value in so many things that I don't need to feel pigeonholed to one type of thing that I hate. Like there's so many options. Um, so yeah, and I think that the practice of yoga has given me has allowed me the space to really feel and know that confidently and in clarity, and then to walk in that, in the spaces that I show up. And also, same thing, it's like recognizing, your environment and the space you're in is one factor, but like you take yourself everywhere you go. So it's funny when you go from even different jobs. It's like, oh, this
Yeah.
looks familiar or this feels familiar. But in that, the denominating or the common factor is yourself always. So it's a two-way street with how you show up to a place and with that place, and whatever they got going on too. But all
Yeah.
that we can control and all that we are responsible for is ourselves and how we show up and our attitude and all of that.
Yeah.
Oof.
Eso
Yeah,
es todo.
it's funny that you say that too, Jana, because um, uh, this intermixing of my fashion industry experience and yoga, I've gotten to, and actually I have a couple opportunities pending where it's like yoga clothes manufacturers want my help, and in those fashion industries, and it's like though it's companies that are eco conscious, so that they know exactly where they're getting all their raw materials to make their fabrics. They're using eco-friendly dyeing materials and things like that. And I'm like, yeah, that's what I want. If I could have that balance of this company is doing everything that they can to make sure that this clothing is sustainable, that it's like earth conscious, it's like it knows exactly how responsible they have to be to make sure that just because we want to spit into some yoga pants, we're not destroying like anybody's livelihood or the planet. I feel when I find that perfect job, it's going to be that like a yoga manufacturer with eco-friendly processes, and then I am going to be like in nirvana.
I love it.
Man, for me, it in the sense of everything we're talking about, and even it, it was different for me of where this mindset had me find yoga, because I was just out trying to survive. And whatever I was going to do to survive, I was going to do to survive. So I joined the military.
Mm.
That meant I was going to do whatever job that was I learned in the military. And so that was warehousing. When I had a hobby of working in computers, right? It's just something I love to do. And it's sort of the same story of where my mother was in data processing, like the movie, whatever the hell that was, where the woman worked for NASA and you had all these black women who worked in data processing. My mother, at 17 years old back in the 70s, got into data processing for the county of LA or something like that. And so I grew up in these computer rooms, and I wanted to run my own computers. So that became my hobby and something I could do. And what I discovered was it was something I could do without time. Like I could do it, and there was no such thing as it was taking me forever or whatever. I could do something in computers 12 hours, and it felt like it was 2 hours for me. And
Mm.
so it was kind of finding that groove, in a sense. That's something that I start looking for, and that is what got me into yoga. Is that we are looking to find that balance, that place of where I can do it, and there is no time. I can just do it all day. I could run my mouth about this philosophy, as you guys know, and whatnot, and there is no time
Yes,
for
you
us.
can.
And that's for me
Yeah.
of where I look for that thing I could do. That was that love. That was, in a sense, that yoga. That's why we're here in the tree because this is something
Yeah.
I love.
Yeah.
I just wanted to chime in and just remind people who are watching us live on YouTube or Facebook that you can drop your questions or comments in, and we're going to incorporate it into the conversation. Para ustedes que están mirando nuestra plática y escuchando, que nosotros estamos viendo los comentarios y preguntas que tienen de acuerdo a este tema es de yoga y nuestras carreras. Entonces, si tienen preguntas, los vamos a leer y vas a ser parte de nuestra conversación. Entonces, les invito y lo vamos a seguir aquí.
Well, I
Les
have a
seguimos.
question that I can insert.
Oh, perfect timing.
So one question in regards to this theme is how can we work more harmoniously with people in the workplace? So with our coworkers, teammates, whatever that is, just what, thinking about the yoga practice and everything and how we can work better with others. Voy a tratar a traducir.
Sí.
La pregunta es, ¿cómo podemos trabajar mejor, con más armonía, con otros, con las personas con quien trabajamos?
Yo voy a dar una respuesta y luego mire, no sé qué más. Yo miro que hay personas que cada uno tiene lo que tiene fuerzas y otras cosas que les cuesta mucho hacer. Y es saber quién puede ser algo que te puede ayudar, que tú no sabes. Igual alguien, tú puedes decir, ay, lo quiero que me lo haces así, pero ellos no tienen ese skill set para hacerlo. So I'm just talking about like in our workplace, like kind of having an understanding of everyone's strengths and weaknesses. And not that it's like, oh, don't ever ask that person who has like a weakness in that, but just knowing that like that's how teams work very good at being aware of those things and being okay to be vulnerable about what your strengths and weaknesses are. And I think it kind of comes back to the energy in that environment, right? Sometimes like if you're in a very cutthroat competitive environment, you don't want people to know what your weaknesses are. Like you might feel like they're going to use that against you, but that might also be reflective of like, is that the environment I thrive in, or is that the type of environment that serves me? Like it like pushes me to be a certain way, right? So for me, what's always worked is just like learning everyone's strengths and then supporting each other through like, hey, I am not good at any tech stuff. Jay, can you help me with that? Jay will be like, Jen, can you help me organize everything? And I'll be like, yes, I can. I think just knowing that, right? Like we all bring something to the table and just like really breaking bread with that. And that's how, that was a great question, but there's so many other answers that I'm sure you all can add to.
No, I think that was so on point. It's a respecting of the other person's perspective. I think really avoiding assumptions and taking things personally, as if you've read the Four Agreements, something like that, I think is big when working with people. It's, when you give people respect for where they're coming from, whether you agree with it or not, you allow someone to be heard, then you allow actual communication. That was big for me in the workplace because I believe in over talking people and shutting them down because I thought they were moronic, and it didn't always go over so well. But at the same time,
you think, Jay, you made that friend there?
I was good at what I did, and so but at the same time, being a computer geek, we didn't have to be diplomatic because we were behind the scenes, as opposed to people where you really have to kind of work up front with everybody.
Sorry, Jay. All I could think of is those SNL sketches with the IT guys, like just being assholes to everyone that just fucking needed to know how to print the fucking paper.
Yeah, what is it? Like, no people skills and like more emotional intelligence. Like,
Jay!
But honestly, though, that's what began to help me propel in my career. When I was just a hermit computer geek and just building things, then I I was, just spirited away from people. But as I began to work with people and I began to stumble on this philosophy, now, people start showing up to my desk. People wanted to talk to me more. And I didn't know what the hell that was all about until now that, I coach people and do all that stuff. But it's something to learn, to really kind of have an ego death and be able to be a good coworker, if you will.
Yeah, that brings up a bunch of stuff for me too, Jay, because I feel that there, at the what is it called? At the peak of my seniority, I was working at this one place. I'm gonna say where it was, but I'm not gonna say any coworker's name because you guys already know who they are. It was Michael Stars, and I was the director level there. But like you said, that ego shit, like just looking back, I was a fucking bitch. Like I didn't have time for fucking some kind of bullshit. What I did have time for was, and I realized it also has to do with, I feel like this shit always comes up every time we talk, like that white supremacy shit, where I was empathetic to all the people, to all my subordinates, because I knew how hard they were working, like all the sample sewers, people in the warehouse, they had a place in my heart because I knew their struggle. But then all these other executives that were got that job straight out of school or wherever, or because so and so knew them or blah blah blah, I that ego part of me, it just clicked automatically. I was like, no, you got here and you just fucking got here out of the blue. You just manifested yourself here while I had to work all these other years to get to where I am. So I was a bitch. There was this one girl in particular, her last name was Fox, that's all I'll say. And that was that was one of the ones that I just could not wrap my head around why I disliked her so much. And I mean, you guys can tell right now, it just if you would light me up just seeing her face and walking in the door and just knowing that I had to deal with her every day. I think that if my yoga practice that I have now would have happened back then, it would have been a totally different thing. I would have been happy to go to work, and I would have been like, you know what? It is what it is. I hold space for whatever she's going through, because just looking back, there was a bunch of shit we were all going through. But yeah, I hadn't discovered yoga yet, so.
Well, I love that you said that, Rita.
I don't know if you guys can imagine me being a bitch, because I'm so lovely.
You are. That's so hard to imagine.
But just that acknowledgement of the difference in you, not that person, that's irrelevant at the end of the day, because you know what I mean. And so I think that that's really key when we're talking about dealing with other people, especially if you're showing up to a place and you're seeing the same people. You're in a relationship with these people, whether you have the same attitude at them every day and choose to ignore them or not. If y'all work together and showing up in the same space every day, just be mindful of you more than the person. So yeah, I mean that's so real.
I gotta share a story because I got
no names, Jay. No names.
No
maybe
names.
last name.
I can't even remember this gentleman's name, honestly.
Aww.
It was back when The Secret and all that stuff had come out. Then I was like, hey, let me put this stuff to the test. It was still before yoga for me. And one of the things that they were saying was, when I read the book The Law of Attraction, right, is how we attract these people to us. And so I'm like, I'm attracting this dude. We had to bring in these consultants to come in, and just as what you shared, Rita, I had to teach this MF, this motherfucker, teach this what it took me years to learn. And, and we making great money at what we do. And They like, here, just show him what to do. I'm like, do you know it took me years to learn this and all the checks and things you have to do to run these $1 million systems that we anyway. And so I'm hating this dude. I'm like, fuck him. Trying to tell him like he fucking up this, he fucking up that. And the more I'm bitching about this dude, I swear, the more he is in my face, and they are making me work with him. And I'm like, what the hell? And so as I got into law of attraction, it was like, you need to change your energy. You need to take your focus off this dude, right? And so one of the practices that I picked up was to find something that you liked about him, right? Whatever that was, right? And put that energy out. And I was like, what? I had a hard time with that for a bit until I was like, you know what? I like his shoes. I like his hair. I didn't have no hair still back then. And so when he would walk up, I would think, he got some cool shoes. And I like what he does with his hair. And that literally changed my energy towards this dude. Now, I still wasn't his friend or, whatever. But now that I changed my energy towards him and I wasn't MFing him and whatnot and dropping dime on the little stuff he got, it literally switched. It did like a 360 of where suddenly now they fired him. The dude no longer worked there anymore. And this is something I teach people of how you can implode your enemies in a sense. It's not that they're the issue, it's that you're the issue. And that was what I discovered about me. It was like, oh, Jay, you're the asshole.
Yeah.
And when I wiped myself up, cleaned myself up, I didn't stink as bad, then the flies went away.
Yes, exactly.
Thanks for the visual. What's coming up? It's like, I feel like our next topic, but something to consider is like, that's coming up right now is, I don't know if you saw, like, I don't know if it was an article or someone's posting, but it was about like what white supremacy looks like in nonprofits and like in the corporate. I feel like we understand it more in like institutions, but it's like looking at like the practices of like capitalism, productivity, the way that like we work hard. And so it's like so much. And I'm just like, wow, what is like white supremacy in the workplace and yoga? How does all that come together? And I feel like it's very clearly, but that would be something to be interested in.
You're talking about freeing minds. Right,
Yeah.
in the sense that white supremacy is talking about extracting resources, right? Extracting resources of other people. When you really get into the history of white supremacy and you get to understanding monarchies and understanding that kings just simply wanted to extract the taxes and the wealth from their people so that they could live extravagantly, that's the same thing we have here in this 1%. And so people don't understand that they're plugged into these bloodsuckers, if you will, and we're calling them our jobs. And we're, in a sense, slaves to these jobs for our things. And we're distracted, right? We don't even understand that white supremacy as a cultural concept has us all as these slaves. Again, if you watch The Matrix, we're all plugged into this and we're just their batteries. I think yoga allows us to unplug our energy from that bullshit matrix and plug it back into ourselves, back into our family, back into our communities. Yeah. At least that's how it seems for me.
Yeah.
I think too, it's that fine line between production and creativity. Because I think about even, what we're creating here with the co-op, and going back to the quote, even, it's this idea of, instead of being in this mindset of, oh, I got to do what so-and-so says I got to do, it's like, what do I want to do? And that's where so now what's being created from me is from joy and from care and what I want to do, as opposed to being like forced to produce on behalf of, some other entity. And so it's a similar, it's similar in the outcome or in the result, but it's a whole different real result when you talk about people who create and people who are just producing. And so I think too, with like this it's again, it's like, I mean, I'm in the midst of this right now where it's like, especially because everything's been shaken up with the COVID situation, to where it's like with the yoga studio and how we offer yoga, for example, and offer this practice and philosophy and whatever it is, it's like being now creative in how we want to share this practice, given the world that we currently live in. And it's like, it's not a have to thing. It's like a desire to want to have these tools and things available, accessible, and for others to be able to like make that personal for themselves. Um, so yeah, I think it's a subtle shift in how you approach whatever it is you're spending your time doing. Your work, whatever it is.
We
With
have a
that,
question.
oh,
Yeah,
let's
we
do that
do.
before I just share this like off.
Rose asks, do you think yoga and meditation are easily obtainable in jobs that do not revolve around manual labor?
That kind of popped up for me because I I think, and I've seen and I've experienced what we're talking about, where it's like, oh yeah, just change your mentality. Like if you look at stuff on the positive side, your day's going to be great. But there's people that don't have that fucking choice, and that even if they could, they probably can't make time to get into a practice that can alleviate whatever fucking stress and all that shit that's going on in their head because of things like that, because of manual labor. So like one of the things uh, that I always pops to mind when we talk about, oh yeah, just take a break, self-care, blah blah blah. Once you start your practice, things will get better. And I think about this little clip that I saw on Facebook about the diamond mines in Africa, and how these little fucking babies, five, from 5 to like 12-year-olds, are like going into these mines, carrying out these fucking bags of rocks just to see if they can even get paid to buy a loaf of bread. And uh, on this little clip, it cuts to him being at home and just like bawling because he doesn't want to wake up, because that's his life. And so obviously, it's not like that in America, but I feel that that kind of burden sometimes does feel like that when you don't have the opportunity to just take a break. Like, people going from manual labor straight to home to like do something for their families, like maybe even going to another job an hour or two later. So I think that's a good question that Rosie has. Like um, how do, how does our experience as, busy workers in our careers, um, how did we find time to take a break?
Well,
And
I
I
also
feel like
want to
that's just one of the things that I want to explore. Is like helping those people that can't make time. I don't know.
Yeah, I was gonna say that I feel like it does happen in America where we think about the
Yeah.
manual labor of farm workers. They're not like, after a whole day, you think they want to do some physical yoga. Like, they're like, no.
Oh yeah.
But when we think about like culturally, um, if we're gonna say like a lot of our farm workers are Spanish speaking, and culturally they have like their faith that they fall to, right? Where like they're not that like praying is gonna, but prayer is a form of meditation that can help them really like just focus on like hope, on like things
Yeah.
that they and get them through really rough times. But of course, I think when I heard this question, I was thinking more about like how, I'm not going to say which big university had me come bring yoga to their medical staff. And to me, it's like all these businesses that want to bring yoga and meditation in because these studies say that it will make them, it'll take care of your workers because of burnout, because it'll make them more productive. And to me, it's like not genuine to just like
Yeah.
say that they're during their 1 hour lunch break is when that free yoga class will take place. To me, it's like, so then when do they eat? And then like, so how, and then you're only doing it because you want it to come back, not necessarily like taking care of your staff. It's like almost wanting that trade-off. But of course there are benefits to it, and I did have students come every week after week, but to me it was like, you're still functioning in a very capitalistic, I want them to produce, so I'm going to give them something that research has says will make them be better workers. And so that's like from a university to like a very recognized university with their medical staff, having them have that. And I'm just like, this is like counterintuitive. Like, or like it contradicts itself almost.
I think they don't recognize what it actually leads to, because I think in the beginning, sure, it makes you now kind of settle into what you're doing, right? If you're meditating and doing yoga, and you're like, okay, I think I can find contentment in this slavery. But ultimately, I think that what happens is that you discover it's slavery. Like, before you think of it as survival, until you really start having it. Because that's sort of what happened to me, is that as I could create in my career, as I could build networks for companies and whatever, that was creating for me. And then as I made this transition, like I said, I started recognizing perspectives. Now people started coming to me, and I started dealing with people. I started to get into being a manager and having to manage people. And then you got to get that. I'm working for healthcare partners, which they're not healthcare partners anymore. But this is a group of doctors. And my job is, one, to help put people out of work so that these doctors can make more profit, and so that they could just handle people getting sick, not make people better, but actually. And so as I settled into this and really start now paying attention instead of just being in survival mode, it made me begin to want to walk away from that slavery. And it's, in a sense, it led me into doing contract work, to where then I just started having people pay me to do my work and whatever, and I didn't have to go into a place. And then that slowly really got me into wanting to help free people. And yoga for me was that thing I always say that I wanted to use to trick people, because it exists without this understanding of yoga, just as Jen said, right? People have their faith. And what they don't realize is that if you pray positively, if you put your energy on your hope, your love, then that will get you someplace differently than if you are down and out and always in that survival mode. That you can, even as a worker, right? Something that I found, that if you can put your breath on what it is that you're doing, right? You're going to take breaks no matter what. As I would find myself sitting in the bathroom sobbing because I hated my life, right? Like, damn, here I am. I had two-car garage house, two cars, all of this shit, and I hate my life. And I don't know what the hell is going on. And so I'm sitting there taking these breaks no matter what. If I would have had someone to explain to me the importance of taking time for myself, really focusing on me, then I think no matter what it was I would have done, that lesson would have slowly started to sink in. Because in our 20s, we going to do whatever the hell we going to do no matter what. It's not until we start getting close to the 30s that we start going, maybe I should listen to what those other people said. At least that's how it goes down for me. But yoga, I think it's the mindfulness that's real. And really, I think getting it out to teach it to more people, of letting them know what's an indigenous practice, right? These are things that we did before we were colonized into this flat earth thinking of Christianity. And I say that because there's a mysticism within Christianity, a deeper aspect of it that we can see, that can allow us to tap into this yoga philosophy or these yoga principles still from a Christian perspective. These are things that are just lost so that we can continue to be slaves. My favorite word tonight.
Well, one, to Rosie's question too, my immediate thought was that, yeah, I think it's about also demystifying yoga and meditation.
Mm.
Um, and it's like it doesn't mean that it's always some physical thing with your body. It doesn't always it doesn't mean that you need another person present. Um, it's such an intimate relationship with yourself and finding your own clarity of mind and thought. And similar to what Jay was saying too, I think the practice itself will kind of get you out of, there's a term called hypnotic rotation, where it's just like we find ourselves in these loops of habits and actions and thoughts. Um, and we all do it. So it's like it's not even about whatever. Like that's part of, we are habitual people, beings rather. And so I think though it's not being aware of the patterns that we're in that can cause us to not feel satisfied with life. And so I think that the practice, if it's real and authentic for you, which does not mean that it has to be doing a 60-minute yoga class every week with a teacher.
Yeah.
But if it's real and authentic for you, then that awareness will grow. That awareness of the patterns that you are in, and also the awareness of the fact that there is power within you, no matter what economic state or what your day-to-day actions are.
Yeah.
And the whole mustard seed is a real thing. It can be a small bit of whatever it is, but I think it's really real. Even when we think about the tree and that whole analogy,
Yeah.
it's like um, having courage and confidence, whatever it is, to allow you to water those even small seeds within yourself and for your life. And these are words, and so like everyone's experience of that is going to be their own business. But I do think that yoga and meditation, what it really is absolutely accessible to all humans.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's a question on YouTube from Jules. And the question is, and only because I like the way you navigate this Christian thing, Jay, maybe you can answer it. I'll just read it out. um, People that argue that yoga is its own religion and is anti-Christian, what do you all say to that? What are your opinions on that? I'll let Jay start off.
Well, I, for one, this is exactly what you said. This is opinion. This is where I'm coming from, because I know everyone, again, has their own perspective, and it's important that we respect that. One, yoga is not a religion. Yoga is a philosophy, which is something different. Hinduism, in a sense, is a religion, and what under Hinduism is a philosophy of yoga. And so it's like saying Christianity is a religion, and then the understanding of moderation is a philosophy. And so it's that same thing within Christian teaching of moderation. Yoga is teaching that same thing. And so it is not anti-Christian in that sense of teaching you something different. It may be anti-Christian in a fundamentalist view, in that you can only look at things from this one world view, right? And that's not something that allows us to work together as human beings. And I say that because the Enlightenment within Europe happened once Europeans opened themselves up to read other people's books. When that happened, now they became this high society. Before that, they existed in the Dark Ages. And so if we close our minds to other people's ways, then we close ourselves off to the rest of God's understanding, if you will. So yoga to me is just really part of a Christian teaching that was removed at a certain point in time. Again, Europe fell into a dark age. Before that, there was civilization, and all these people understood and knew each other and traded with one another. When they got into it being just this one way, that threw them into a dark age from 300 all the way up to 1700 BCE. And after that, now we're 300, 400 years later, they have civilization. But Mayan civilization existed for 3,000 years, if not more. Kemetic civilization, African civilization existed for 3,000 years, if not more. China still exists all the way back from the Bronze Age till today. Indus or India still exists. And so it's important to understand that we're all one family. These books that we have written to each other are just that. They are spiritual teachings that we have written to each other, not just our group or just our people. Right? This is what I think yoga does for us, is it brings us together as one family, one breath, if you will.
Also, when I started my yoga practice, I was raised Roman Catholic. And then at some point I was like, no, I'm out of this organized religion stuff. I'm not doing it. It's not, it wasn't authentic for me. And for a while I was like, oh, I'm atheist. But then I was like, no, there's something out there. I don't know what it is. So I'm not really an atheist, but I'm not buying into any of this religious organization stuff. And I think that's what my, initial niche for yoga is that I understood it to be a philosophy and not a religion. So that's my opinion on it as a previous Roman Catholic, not falling into any kind of religious organization stuff. Yoga is what gets me through the shit called life.
I mean, I don't know if we're still going another round of a response for this. But I like to say I have my Catholic heart because I was confirmed and I can baptize kids, so if they need a godmother.
Oh, yeah.
I'm always like, I have the Catholic heart, I can do it. But anyway, but I don't see myself as a religious person, but I see myself as a very spiritual person, and kind of just going back to what Jay was talking about, this history. So I feel like you should change your name to the historian or something. You break it down. I'm like, well, thanks for that was really quick. I just learned so much. And so I think just bringing it back is that I think when we can see that there's universally there's so many stories in each of these books that are almost the same and very similar, but if you just look at what it's teaching, those teachings are there, and it's just to really how do we connect and not be about this othering process that we've learned, and how we start to other ourselves by category of religion. And so for myself, it's I feel more connected to more people when they don't even have to tell me what the religion is. It's just I see you, and and I respect you. Yeah. I don't I'm not gonna fall into this organized way of separating ourselves, because I understand that there's so many teachings out there that are literally at the end of the day just trying to make us better human beings and love each other and love this earth and take care of it. So
I think too, all of the indigenous ancient peoples, that's what it all comes back to, is having this union, this balance with ourselves, with others, and with the earth. And I personally think that's something that organized religions have missed. For some reason, I read through religious articles, I'll read through the Bible, and I'm it just doesn't click to me the way ancient teachings like Totekarioto click. So I don't know if it's me personally, but I just find ancient teachings a lot easier to connect to than these novice Christian and Catholic religions. Not making fun of anyone, just personal experience.
I hear
Well,
you.
I just want to throw in there just the acknowledgement of how even yoga too can, like how it's evolved here in America.
Yeah.
It mimics so much of what has happened in religion. Just in
It's true.
terms
Yeah.
of like even there being, you know, like this alliance to certain styles of yoga or
Yeah.
certain lineages of yoga.
Oh, for sure.
And sometimes in certain spaces there is this feeling of like, you know, to be in our club, you gotta be able to do this and that. And like it's just not real. It's just none of that none of
Yeah.
that is real. And it's unfortunate when that's how people are introduced to the practice and that's what they think is the basis of the practice. And the same thing with religions. It's unfortunate when we're introduced to it or our basis of it all has to do with some whole other things that human beings have created. Um, and so one of the main connections for me and parallels is like even in Christianity when we talk about God and the stories of Jesus, it's like there's always this pointing to it being inside of yourself. Like the kingdom of God is within you. And the same thing with yoga. It's like the seer, the self is within you. And that clear, that Brahman, that's in you and that's clarity and that's your highest self. So there's so many parallels in these things for me, but sometimes we get fixated on the people who brought us the message or the spaces where we hear the message that we don't let the message just be the message for us. Um, and a lot of times the way that it's given, you know, it's just given in ways sometimes that make you think that it's something else. And it's just like there's no there's no real blueprint. I think that's the beauty of it to where it's like you cultivate your own relationship with the God in you, with the seer in
Yeah.
you, with the knower in you, and allow yourself to live that out in union, right? Connected with that self. That's yoga. And that's the same thing as like in Christianity, living as one with Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. All of that is me. And so, you know, there's no real battle going on like we all talked about. It's all just not being so tied to the story or the giver of the story and letting yourself just live out, you know, the story within your own life, within your own self.
Well, I want to interject and say that, in a sense of it, there is a way the story is being told that doesn't make it about the self. I
Right.
think religion can remove the story from the perspective of it being about your own journey or your own being, right? In the sense of it being that we are human beings, meaning it's about how you're being in this moment. It's not about what you believe from the past. It's about in this moment, how do you believe you should be, right? The good news is that if you chose love in the moment, then miracles can happen if you will. And in the sense of it being flattened in a way to where it's being told as a certain people's history. Now, Christ is not a woman. Christ is not a black man. Christ is not, to me, when the story is more spiritual, when religion is given that deeper perspective, then I understand that this is actually a story about my own hero's journey, my own traveling into self, my own discovery that there is a Christ within me, and that I can begin to play that up and now be that. But when Christ was just simply this man, now I'm not really aspiring to be a better human being. I'm aspiring to follow someone's religion. And I think that's something that puts us into slavery.
Well, I'm just glad that none of us chose the career path of being priestess or nuns. Um, Only because I feel like we deviated from like careers to like this whole philosophy.
I
Um,
think we are.
but
I think we are priests and nuns.
well, I mean, I am the high priest is of awesomeness.
That's going to be our
And
conversation next time.
all of us are on like the same altar, same level of priesthood. But yeah, I think kind of like just to, what time is it? Almost wrapping this up. I think it didn't matter what career we got into. It kind of all led us here to the tree as co-owners of this co-op thing, which is an awesome new career path that I am looking forward to. And just to like throw in a little bit more about this new venture we're on. People keep asking me, how does it feel to be an owner? And I'm like, I don't know yet. It hasn't hit me. All we're doing is virtual stuff. I feel like when it's like going to be in like a brick and mortar place and we're there, and not that it doesn't feel like it already. I don't know. I feel like it's going to hit me like,
so you cut the red ribbon.
Yes, the ribbon cutting.
Right.
I don't know. I feel it coming this weekend.
Oh, that's right. Yes, teacher training, guys, sign up. Or wait, did our deadline pass? Oh,
Tonight was the deadline. Tonight.
Well,
you know how it
still
goes.
got 4 hours.
Get that application. You got 4 hours. All right. So we're already at the end. Jay, you want to close us out?
I get to close us out now that I'd love to first say that this was a full show that actually went out on YouTube and Facebook. And so thank you everyone who joined us and watched us tonight. We had, I think, an average of 6 people on YouTube and an average of 2 on Facebook. But it was an impromptu show where we wanted to put it out there for us. I think you should know that this is a love of where I think for our communities, Black and brown and worldwide, we want more people to unplug from the matrix and plug into the love of themselves. And so one of the things we do to plug into that love of ourselves is that we stop as we end the show, and we're going to take a couple of breaths. Just relaxing those shoulders, even just shaking out and relaxing those hands. And just closing the eyes if you like. We're just going to inhale through the nose. Hold it at the top. Exhale out the mouth. Let's do it again. Inhale through the nose. Hold it at the top. Exhale out. One more. Inhale through the nose. Holding it at the top. And just exhaling out the mouth. I hope this has been a good experience for you guys, the way I believe it's been a good experience for us. And I want to say that I love you guys as my partners, and I love you guys as just great beings.
Yay. Love you.
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you all.
And yes, I'm a cornball too. All right. Good night, everyone.
Hasta luego.